He is my Lord, protector, command ecstatic, friend of the poor, and Lord and Master of devotees. Oh, Master, please be merciful unto us. Santa Swami Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopijana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Jaya Radha Radha Kanta Radha Radha Kanta Radhe Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 4, text number 24. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Rityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Text number 24. Satam Mahabhagavatam
Satam Mahabhagavatam
Rajantam Kauravarshava
Rajantam Kaurava
Vishrambat Abhyadatte Hadam
Vishwambhavatyadatevam
Mukyam Krishna Parigrahe
Mukyam Krishna Parigrahe
Satam Mahabhagavatam
Satam Mahabhagavatam
Rajantam Kauravarshava
Rajantam Kaurava
Vishrambat Abhyadattedam
Vishwambhavatyadatevam
Mukyam Krishna Parigrahe
Mukyam Krishna Parigrahe
Sattam Mahabhagavatam
Satam Mahabhagavatam
Rajantam Kauravarshavaha
Rajantam Kaurava
Vishrambat Abhyadattedam
Vishwambhavatyadatevam
Mukyam Krishna Parigrahe.
Mukyam Krishna Parigrahe.
Devotees.
Satam Mahabhagavatam
Satam Mahabhagavatam
Vrajantam Karovashava
Rajantam Kaurava
Vishrambad Akya Dateram
Vishwambhavatyadatevam
Mukyam Krishna Parigraha.
Mukyam Krishna Parigrahe.
Satam Mahabhagavatam
Satam Mahabhagavatam
Rajantam Kaurava
Rajantam Kaurava
Vishwambhavatyadatevam
Vishwambhavatyadatevam
Mukyam Krishna Parigrahe
Mukyam Krishna Parigrahe.
Satam Mahabhagavatam
Satam Mahabhagavatam
Rajantam Kaurava
Rajantam Kaurava
Brahmadasya Kandekam
Vishrambat Abhyadattedam
Kyam Krishna Parigrahe.
Mukyam Krishna Parigrahe.
Anybody else? Translation, Wisdom and Vaishnava Prabhupada. While Uddhava, the chief of the most confidential amongst the devotees of the Lord, was going away, Vidura, in affection and confidence, questioned him. Let's repeat. While Uddhava,
While Uddhava,
chief and the most confidential
the chief and most confidential
amongst the devotees of the Lord,
amongst the devotees of the Lord,
was going away,
was going away,
Vidura,
Vidura,
in affection
affection
and confidence,
and confidence,
questioned him.
questioned him.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Vidura was much older than Uddhava. By family relationship, Uddhava was a contemporary brother of Krishna. While Vidura was an elderly as Krishna's father was Dev. But although junior by age, Uddhava was much advanced in devotional service of the Lord, and therefore is described herein as the chief amongst the devotees of the Lord. Vidura was confident about this, and thus he addressed Uddhava in that higher category. That is the way of courteous dealings between two devotees. Om Tat Sat. Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshurmilitamena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Katham Akhim Dadati Swapadantikam Mukam Karoti Vacharam Pangum Langayate Girimit Kripatam Aham Vande Sri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Mishwaram Namam Shripadai Krishna Prishthana Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namne Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharani Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Deshtarani Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasa Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Om Tat Sat. So, we are almost coming to conclusion of the discussion between Uddhava and Vidura. So, to just recap, so Vidura, after undergoing a lot of pilgrimage, so he is coming to the Yamuna bank of Yamuna, and then he meets Vidura. He meets Uddhava there. And Uddhava was just returning from Prabhasha Kshetra after having met Lord Krishna and after having seen him off going back to his spiritual world. So he is coming to the bank of Yamuna, and by coincidence, by arrangement of the Supreme Lord, two great devotees meet each other. And as soon as they meet, and Vidura seeing Uddhava, so he is overwhelmed with affection, and he is asking about what transpired with the different devotees, starting with Krishna himself, starting with Krishna's relatives in the Mathura, and also then going to the Krishna's relatives in Vrindavan. So he's going and he's recounting all the pastimes. How is he? How is he? How is he? How is he? Then Uddhava is replying back one by one, talking about the devotees, and then he goes into ecstasy, and then he remembers about Lord Krishna. And he recounts his whole lifetime, from start to finish, from how he was born to the way he killed different demons, like then Bakasura and others. And then he talks about his, after he becomes a king, his different exploits and different pastimes. Then he also finally recounts how Krishna actually asked Uddhava to go to Badrikashrama, but Uddhava did not go. Uddhava remained with Krishna, and or rather he went, but he joined him back in Prabhasha Kshetra, and he came and met him when all the kings were all Uddhava, the Yadu dynasty were all fighting with each other. They are all done. Then Krishna is sitting under the banyan tree, in the bank of Saraswati river, and Uddhava comes to meet him at that time. Krishna was very pleased to see him, and he considers him a very confidential friend. So he's in the mode of Sakya Rasa. And not just that, Krishna himself says he's a very great devotee, very close devotee. So he says that in the verse number, I believe, 11. Let me read that verse number. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. So Krishna says, Vedaham antar manishpitam ithe. So Krishna says that you are mana ipshitam, antar mana ipshitam. I can share my inner thoughts with you, Krishna says. So he considers him a very confidential friend whom he can share his inner thoughts. So he described Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, or he described this very transcendental subject matter of how to execute devotional service. So Bhagavad Gita is more of the mode of sambandha or relationship. So who are the living entities, then who is the Supreme Lord, and what is the process the living entity should take to approach the Supreme Lord, and then what is the what can be achieved by achieving the Supreme Lord. There are 5 important questions. The one is, who are we? Second is, who is God? And the third one is, what do we get by achieving God? And fourth one is, what is the process of achieving Supreme? And fifth is, what is stopping us from achieving the Supreme? These 5 important topics are dealt in Bhagavad Gita in great detail. Krishna explains about himself, his opulences, and he explains about the living entity, his miserable situation in the material world, and he also explains about how to achieve him by the different yoga process. And then he also says what is stopping the living entities from achieving him. And he gives finally the verdict that one has to surrender to him completely, without any kind of reservation, without any kind of isms. That is when he can be achieved. So that was Krishna's verdict in the Bhagavad Gita. So there is more in the sambandha, or in relationship. What is what, who is who, what is the process, what are the enemies stopping you from achieving him. So that was the subject matter of Bhagavad Gita. But in this particular Gita, or discussion between Uddhava and Krishna, he goes in great detail about different stages of devotion, Uttamadhikari, Madhyamadhikari. He talks about what are the symptoms of each one, and he talks about how to perform Devi Varnashma Dharma. So a lot of things are discussed there. So he's very enlightened. Uddhava is completely Krishna. He says just 2-3 verses back that his hands are standing on end, hearing all that. So that is pure devotee. Pure devotee, he is immediately religious association of Krishna and his devotees. And he wants to say this to Vidura. But earlier we saw how Uddhava was a little hesitant because Vidura was elder to him in age. So he felt it was not appropriate for him to talk about this subject matter to him. And you can see here in this verse how Vidura, he is so respectful of Uddhava. So just like in the 24 purport says, Vidura was much older than Uddhava. By family relationship, Uddhava was a contemporary brother of Krishna, and Vidura was elderly as Krishna's father Vasudeva. But although junior by age, Uddhava was very much advanced in devotion, service to the Lord. So Vidura knew this. So Vidura was more in the mode of awe and reverence, in the mix of Shanta Rasa, a little bit of Dasya Rasa, a little bit of Vatsalya Rasa. Because he is also very elderly to Krishna. So, but whereas Uddhava was very close associate of Krishna. He was a very chosen messenger many times of Krishna. He goes to different places to convey the message of Krishna to different other devotees. So not to other non-devotees. But when it comes to giving message to his pure devotees, he chooses Uddhava. So he's a very, very chosen associate of Krishna. And is a pure devotee of Krishna. So Vidura knows what is the etiquette that should be followed. Although he is elderly to him, but he was considering him an advanced devotee. And he was wanting to listen to him. And he was glorifying him. His great fortune of directly associating Krishna and listening to him. Krishna gave that very confidential subject matter to Uddhava. So, especially if someone is leaving the world, that is when they would like to say something confidential only to his close associates. So there's some secret that they've kept the whole life, and they know that they have to pass on the secret, and they usually call upon their closest either children or some friend, and then they share or they write their will. So that is very secret and that is very confidential. So Uddhava was such a confidential servant of Krishna. So when he was leaving, so he chose Uddhava to give that message to the whole world, of course. And so through Uddhava he gave this. And Uddhava is now speaking this to, wanting to speak to Vidura. And so that is how this whole Bhagavatam also comes. So many cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam is actually a discussion between Uddhava, or bracket Maitreya, talking to Vidura. So all this, Krishna considers Srimad Bhagavatam to be the most confidential subject matter. That is why he gives that to Uddhava. Especially keeps it in the 11th canto. So 12th canto all deals with the symptoms of Kali Yuga and how the Kali Yuga is going to be very extremely worse and it's going to be dangerous. Whereas the 11th canto, it's the end of the beautiful narration of Srimad Bhagavatam almost. Whereas 12th canto is mostly about Kali Yuga and what is the process in Kali Yuga. And so the confidential subject matter of the whole Srimad Bhagavatam is actually there's nothing wrong in saying it's there in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. The discussion between Krishna and Uddhava. So, and also part of it is also in the second, third, and fourth canto, because Maitreya is nothing but is talking the same subject matter to Vidura. So you can see canto 2, canto 3, canto 4, and canto 11 is all actually a discussion between Uddhava and Krishna, narrated through the mouth of Maitreya. So the good part of Srimad Bhagavatam is actually this discussion. And so that is why, and so Uddhava is considered a very special devotee because Krishna chose him to give that message. And so this always happens. So even in the before Bhishma leaves, so he gives the confidential subject matter of the Varnashrama Dharma to Yudhishthira Maharaj. So he thinks that is the best. But finally he concludes about Lord Krishna and how he is the greatest. So Bhagavatam deals with that part, which talks about Bhishma's instruction on the confidential subject matter of how he considers Krishna to be the supreme and he is the cause of all causes. And that is there in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Whereas in the Mahabharata, he talks about whole Varnashrama Dharma. How should you follow Varnashrama Dharma? What is the duty of a king? What is the duty of a Vaishya? The duty of a Shudra? From a Varnashrama perspective. How should he rule and how should he conduct the whole affairs of the kingdom? So, whereas here, the Bhagavatam is the higher subject matter. So, the Mahabharata and other Puranas, so they are talking mostly on the platform of the Varnashrama Dharma. Especially Mahabharata emphasizes a lot on Varnashrama Dharma through the character of Pandavas. So Krishna is instructing, Vyasadeva is instructing how one should actually live in this world. In spite of all different difficulties, in spite of all the different situations, one should never give up Dharma. And that is always shown with the Pandavas. The Pandavas were always under the protection of Krishna because they always followed Dharma at every moment. If they were confused, they would seek clarification from Krishna or other elders like Bhishma or Drona, so that they always followed that Varnashrama Dharma very properly. And they also dealt with others as proper rulers. They would conduct the execution of Dharma and even punishment, everything. They all had a good knowledge of how to conduct the rules and regulations of ruling a kingdom. So that is the beauty of the Mahabharata. But Mahabharata did not talk about the very subtle aspects of the devotional service. Although Bhagavad Gita is part of Mahabharata, it spoke about devotional service, but did not go in great detail. So that was all dealt in Srimad Bhagavatam. So Krishna is using Uddhava and other great devotees to speak Srimad Bhagavatam. And it's very nicely summarized by Uddhava here. I'm also going to read the next verse. So Vidura Uvacha Jnanam Param Swatma Raha Prakasham Yat Aha Yogeshwara Ishwaraste Vaktu Bhava Na Arhati Yat Adi Vishnor Brahtyasva Vyartha Kritas Charanti. Vidura said, O Uddhava, because the servants of Vishnu, the Lord, wander in the interest of serving others It is quite fit that you kindly describe the self-knowledge with which you have been enlightened by the Lord Himself. So Vidura is asking, Vidura is not, so if there was somebody in a material platform, if we see somebody who is much knowledgeable than us, especially if he is younger to us, so there is a lot of hesitation on our part to ask about some details, because we have to take a lower position. If you have to ask somebody, we have to become and take a humble position. So that is, and our ego doesn't permit us. But Vidura did not have any hesitation. So Vidura knew by dint of his own spiritual knowledge, he knew Uddhava was a very great devotee and very confidential servitor of Krishna. So he did not have any hesitation in asking Uddhava, taking a humble position and asking Uddhava, please explain it to me, if you would like to explain. In a very humble way is asking. So Prabhupada is commenting on this. The servant of the Lord are actually servants of society. They have no interest in human society other than to enlighten it in transcendental knowledge. They are interested in imparting knowledge of the relationship of the living beings with the Supreme Lord, the activities in the transcendental relationship, the ultimate goal of life. That is a real knowledge which can help society achieve real aim of human welfare. Knowledge in the matter of bodily necessities like eating, sleeping, mating and fearing, transform it into various branches of advancement of knowledge is all temporary. A living being is not the material world but an eternal part of the parcel of the Supreme. And thus revival of his self-knowledge is essential. Without this knowledge, the human life is baffled. Servants of the Lord Vishnu are entrusted with this responsible work. So they wander over the earth and to all other planets of the universe. So Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, the 66th verse, that whoever explains this subject matter of Bhagavad Gita to somebody else, to others, they are actually worshipping me with intelligence. And he also declares that whoever does explain this Bhagavad Gita knowledge to others, there is no one who is more dear than them. And he also guarantees whoever is giving this message of Bhagavad Gita to others, they will come back to him at the end of this lifetime. So, Krishna is entrusting this most confidential subject to his devotees. So, that is coming down in the disciplic succession of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself taking up the task. So, he goes on, he wants to say to everybody this message of Krishna. And he tells his associates, Yare deko, Yare kaho Krishna upadesh. Whomever you meet, wherever you meet, talk to them about Krishna. And Amara Agyan Taroyadesh. This is my order. You should explain this message of Bhagavad Gita and you should deliver them. So deliver them doesn't necessarily mean just explaining information. So you have to take responsibility for them. You have to explain this to them and make them understand and guide them step by step so that they become delivered. So all these things is all, so Prabhupada's whole life is spent on that. So in this training devotees and how to preach Krishna consciousness, and he himself doing it by example. He wrote all these translations. He even did not bother about his body. He would rise up early in the morning, would sleep for 2 hours and translate the entire Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, all for our benefit. Because without this proper message of the transcendental literatures, there is no way we can properly understand the transcendental knowledge. So we will not have enough understanding, and there is a danger of we slipping into the wrong understanding, and then completely derailing the whole process. So Prabhupada painstakingly took effort to translate all the books, transcendental literature, mainly the books that is necessary for us, the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam and the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Chaitanya Charitamrita, it deals with even higher understanding of the devotional service, because it practically, the Lord is showing by his own example how a devotee should conduct, how he should not do, what he should do, especially in the setting of the Kali Yuga setting. So 500 years back, it's not much different from now. So he is showing the example, Kali Yuga also, how to practice devotional service, how one should take up to the chanting of the holy name, and how one should deal with devotees very nicely and in a very pleasing way. So it pleases Krishna. Nice relationships and nice dealing with devotees in a very Krishna conscious way is very pleasing to Krishna. So it's called Bhushana. It is an ornament of a devotee. How he conducts with other devotees. The devotee should always make others remember Krishna. That is a sign of a devotee. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, anybody who chants Krishna's name once is a devotee. But a better devotee is one who makes others chant. And the highest devotee is one who, if somebody remembers him also, they feel like chanting. So not even, he doesn't have to tell, please chant. So, but just by remembering him, a thought of him, the devotee, will make others chant. So that is a sign of a pure devotee. And so Prabhupada, think of Prabhupada, so we immediately remember about the whole Krishna conscious principle, the chanting, and his Hare Krishna Dhun is especially always ringing in our ears. So such a transcendental chanting is leading all the devotees, and that record is, and nobody can even compare to that. No Kirtana will compare to that. That is really the power of the purity is there in that chanting, in Prabhupada's chanting. So, like that, so one should, all devotees are actually messengers of Krishna. So, although we are not directly told by Krishna, but through the disciple succession, it has been handed over to us, the responsibility to do this. Yare deko tare kaho Krishna Upadesh Amara Agyaya Tharo Edesh. So this is a responsibility that's coming on our shoulders through the Parampara system. So we should also raise ourselves to qualify and to take the responsibility. Krishna will empower anybody who will preach the message of his message, because that is in his interest. It is his interest that his message goes out to everybody, and definitely whoever is doing it will be empowered. So Krishna says, Mahaprabhu says that Krishna Shakti Vina na Prachar. Prachar cannot be done without Krishna's special mercy or special potency that is given to the devotee. So one who really takes that responsibility, the burden of the spiritual master, and goes ahead and starts his preaching movement, and he takes that responsibility and then he plans and executes. So Krishna will definitely empower them. So preaching does not necessarily mean just speaking. Preaching means everything. So having a temple, maintaining a temple, having beautiful deities, dressing them and offering bhoga to them is all preaching, because that attracts people to come to the movement. Unless you have a nice movement where everything is properly in place, where everything is everybody is working together in tandem, in organization, in synchronization, it's not going to work. The organization is not going to work. So everything is going to fall apart. So everything is preaching. The movement doesn't mean just preachers. The movement means the cooks, the movement means the dressers, the movement means those who are doing book distribution. Everything is preaching. And cooking for the Sunday feast is preaching. So all of this is very important part. So we should do it with utmost care and with this mood of we being the messengers of Krishna. So continuing on the purport, the real transcendental knowledge discerns the disciple succession from the Lord to Uddhava, and from Uddhava to Vidura and so on. Such supreme knowledge is not possible to achieve with the process of imperfect speculation as performed by the so-called learned mundane wranglers. Vidura was anxious to know from Uddhava the confidential knowledge known as Paramam Sthitam, in which the Lord is known by his transcendental pastimes. Although Vidura was older than Uddhava, he was anxious to become a servant of Uddhava in the transcendental relationships. The formula of transcendental discipleship is taught by Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya advises one who receives transcendental knowledge from anyone, whether a Brahmana or a Shudra, a householder or a sannyasi, provided that person is factually conversant with the science of Krishna. So, this is very important. So another good example of, can somebody say, another good example of how somebody who's elder, although being elder, but accepted someone younger than him or her to to learn the general science of Krishna consciousness. Yes, ma'am.
Jadava Prakash accepted Brahmanacharya as his spiritual master.
Right.
He was originally his teacher, a Mayavadi teacher.
Yes. Wonderful. Very nice example. Yes, ma'am.
Devahuti accepted her son, Kapila Dev.
Very nice. Yes. Yes.
King Maharaj Parikshit accepting Sukadeva Goswami when he is 16 years old.
Right. Very good. It's very nice. Yeah, that's true. So that's the history of it. There are so many nice examples. So it doesn't matter what is the age, it doesn't matter. So this is transcendental. Although in the Varnashrama Dharma, in the material relationships, it may be very odd to take a teacher who is younger. But in spiritual knowledge, it doesn't matter whether it's a young or old, or a Shudra or a sannyasi, it doesn't matter. We should always learn to associate with devotees very nicely and learn from them and also help serve them. So Vidura was, it is said, Prabhupada is saying, Vidura was even ready to serve Uddhava. His understanding was very transcendental. So that's the end of the purport here. So that was verse 25. So tomorrow can be verse 26. Any questions? Any comments?
Bible,
Yes, ma'am.
when you're mentioning about now, Vidura and Vidura, what came to my mind was the nice class. And Kelly gave yesterday how devotees are enlightened and having topics of Krishna being discussed with one another, and how they become more and more enlightened, like you see with Maharaj Richard and Sukadev. He's becoming more, he wants to ask questions, and Sukadev is enlivened, like he wants to give the answers, and it comes continually and all that stuff. Yeah, that's what I was thinking about when you mentioned about the two.
Yes. So the beauty is that all this literature is mostly a conversation. Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, it's all conversation. So the devotees always like to talk about Krishna because it is not stop. We cannot even stop talking about Krishna. Those who got the taste for it, they always would like to talk about Krishna. So a good example is Ananta Sesha. So Ananta Sesha has millions of mouths. And it is said that he's been chanting from the time of creation the glories of Krishna and he's not able to stop. He's still continuing. He's not finished narration. And even Rupa Goswami says, I don't know who, Rupa Goswami or some other Goswami. So I'm not able to, I would like to have thousands of mouths to just chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Thousands of mouths and thousands of years. There's so much natural nectar is there in this. So, like that, so like Mata explained very nicely yesterday in the class also, how the Bhagavad Gita in the Krishna very beautifully explains that Tushyanti cha Ramanti cha. It is so enjoyable to talk about Krishna. So you can keep listening and keep talking. If there's a qualified speaker, so we can just keep listening. I'm not a qualified speaker. Definitely you'll get bored after 1 hour. So but somebody, if there is a nice qualified speaker, so it's so nice, you can just keep hearing and you can just relish the pastimes of Krishna. Especially the nice Chaitanya Charitamrita and others. So very nice and beautiful stories. And in a very same contextual setting as our current times. So especially I liked Gaur Leela, hearing to it. I would, whenever I drive for a long drive, I usually put that and then keep hearing. And then it's so nice, you can keep hearing pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You never get bored. So many intricate points and so many nice examples and illustrations and nice points on how we can also do devotional service. So like that, if there's a qualified speaker, Shukadeva Goswami, Srila Prabhupada, so it's nice we can keep hearing on Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita and so many subject matter. So Prabhupada said, I can even give more, but this is good for our lifetime. We cannot even finish reading the whole Prabhupada's books once. Such a lot of books, a lot of wonderful subject matter is there. What about just reading? We have to digest that also. And then we can expect more. So right now, there's always a tendency, devotees, they should go beyond Prabhupada's books. But there is enough in Prabhupada's books that we not understood. There's so much that we don't understood. We can keep reading again and again, we can understand and imbibe in our life. There's so much to learn. And that is, actually speaking, not necessary to go outside Prabhupada's books. Prabhupada said this book will be the law books for the whole Kali Yuga. So this will be the lens in with which we should see everything. Prabhupada wanted us to understand this, digest this, and anything else comes, we should actually see from the lens of Prabhupada's books. Understand, digest, and be the advocates of Prabhupada's book. Prabhupada wanted us to be the lawyers. So it should be quoting the book, and it should be establishing the point through my books. So it's very, very important. So much can be said about Krishna consciousness. I don't know if I answered your question, Mata.
Yes, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Anybody else? Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.